Hey everyone, I want to talk to you today about a topic that was going to be like the lead story on Prime News, but I think it's such a big deal, we need to have a grander discussion about it. And that is the fact that Nintendo today has apparently settled a lawsuit with the folks behind LoveRoms.com. If you don't know what was happening in the past, essentially Nintendo filed a lawsuit against one of the biggest, distributors of Nintendo ROMs on the internet, which led to a ripple effect of many major ROM sites taking down their Nintendo ROMs, or all ROMs in general, out of fear of being targeted by these companies. And the thing is, Nintendo was going after $100 million. Now, it should be noted that downloading ROMs has always been illegal. Distributing ROMs has always been illegal. The only legal form of having a ROM is to self-create one from a physical copy you have in your possession. You are not legally allowed to download or distribute. And obviously, distribution of ROMs is something that these companies like Nintendo are going to care a hell of a lot more about than the people who have downloaded them, because if there's no method to distribute them, then there's no way to really conveniently download them. So Nintendo went after LoveRoms, and this isn't the first ROM site they've gone after. They've issued cease and desist before, but this is the first one they filed a real lawsuit against. And they determined between the trademarks, the fact they were using Mario characters and piranha plants and warp pipes and all this stuff to advertise the website, that it was $100 million in damages. Now, they have settled outside of court. Now, LoveRoms was owned by just a married couple. It wasn't like this massive website with hundreds of employees, and they settled for $12.3 million. $12.3 million. That's enough money to basically ruin anyone who is just running these ROM sites on the side as a hobby. And I think the message from this lawsuit is clear. Nintendo wants the world to know, if you host our ROMs, if you provide our ROMs to be downloaded, we're going to drop the hammer, and we're going to drop it big. Obviously, you could argue the couple kind of won the suit because Nintendo wanted $100 million and said they settled for $12.3. Who knows what the courts would have decided, because they settled this outside of court. Yes, the couple was clearly infringing on copyright and a whole bunch of trademark stuff and would have been found liable. We don't know how much fees the courts would have actually settled on them owing. Maybe it would have been more than the 12.3, maybe it would have been the 100 million, maybe it would have been less. What we do know is it's highly unlikely the couple themselves is actually going to have to pay 12.3 million. These figures are often thrown out in these lawsuits when one company wins and knows the other side has zero chance to ever actually pay it off. What happens is they sign this agreement where it admits guilt. It admits that Nintendo was right. It basically says Nintendo's lawsuit was 100% justified. We agree. This is how much that all that was worth. $12.3 million. And then they make a second agreement a little bit later on what the people are actually going to pay. There's been lawsuits in the past where like $80 million was like the settlement or the agreed upon fee to be paid, and then later on, they only ended up paying like $4 million, because you got to be a little realistic. When you ask for 12.3 and the couple doesn't have that kind of money and never will in their lifetime, there's no point to continue to bug them and say every paycheck you have, every tax return, everything just comes to us forever, because that means Nintendo is willfully putting a company out, people out on the street, essentially. And that doesn't benefit Nintendo because they don't really get any money, and that doesn't benefit the couple. So usually these agreements aren't that terrible behind the scenes. They might only end up paying a few $100,000, maybe $1 million in fees, which is a lot of money, but with payment plans and stuff like that could be manageable. However, that's really not the point. It's not the point of what's going to happen to that couple or how much of this 12.3 million Nintendo is going to actually see. The point is that Nintendo has dropped the hammer to stop ROM sites. And here's the thing. On the surface, I actually think this is a good thing. Nintendo has tried to combat ROM sites a lot, and now they have found an effective way to basically be like, haha, don't you dare host our stuff, because you might be paying us millions of dollars, and the courts are agreeing. Remember, they took this to the high federal courts in the state of Arizona. Now, here's my issue with this in general. And I think this is where a lot of you guys are going to have pause with what Nintendo is doing. I don't think most people are going to be bothered that Nintendo is trying to shut down ROM sites. I think what's going to bother people is they are shutting down ROM sites while at the same time not providing a modern method to play many of these games on current generation hardware. Right now, a lot of these games, if you want to play them, you either need to go to pawn shops and buy old NESs and SNESs and N64s and all those old cartridges, which can be a very expensive endeavor. They're out of print anymore. Not all the hardware, survived over the years, so there's limited in that. And yeah, there's remade consoles by third-party manufacturers, but they're sometimes not as good. There's more input lag. Sometimes the video out's not that great. Sometimes they don't play every game as well because they're using emulators, which are legal, but they don't always run every single game perfectly because you can't use original hardware. That's kind of the big thing when you build those systems. Then on top of that, when they have the virtual console system, well, the Wii online services are shut down already, and the rest of the online services are being shut down after January 31st next year, so no more virtual console being able to buy it that way. Wii U services are still going, but limited. They don't have all of the games on there. They have a nice library of titles, but not everything. 3DS has a nice library of titles, but not everything. And, well, Switch has, 23, soon to be 26 NES games, or maybe it's 26 NES games. I think it was released on the 14th. Anyways, the point is, things are not looking good for a lot of gamers that just want a way to play these classic games from the NES, the SNES, the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, DS even, N64, GameCube, heck, Wii. It's even hard to get a hold of some Wii games at an affordable price. And that's saying a lot considering that you could probably find used Nintendo Wiis out there for, I don't know, 40 bucks, 30 bucks. Heck, there's probably some game stores that'll just give it away if you're willing to buy some games with it. It's baffling to me that Nintendo, not that Nintendo's shutting down ROM sites, but they're doing this at the same time that they aren't providing a legal method to purchase these games. And no, they don't have to do that, right? As long as all the copyrights are there, the trademarks are there, nothing's expired, they can just do that. They don't have to redistribute this stuff. That is well within their legal rights to shut down this stuff and not distribute. And even if they were distributing or not distributing, as they seem to be doing right now, technically it doesn't matter. Distributing ROMs of other people's stuff is illegal anyways, regardless, in most countries. The law is vary country to country. In the United States, it's always been illegal. I know a lot of us have probably used emulators and ROMs for years and years and years and years and years, but I mean, we knew this back in the 90s. We knew back when it was starting, when the internet was growing up and was starting to become prevalent and people were just starting to emulate NES games and Atari games. We knew back then that downloading these ROMs were against the law. In fact, they used to actually come after ISPs back in the day for allowing people to do that before they realized that was a bad idea, because now you're telling ISPs they got to restrict the internet when they're not allowed to restrict the internet. So that all fell apart, and then Nintendo just started giving cease and desist letters to a lot of places. Some listened, some didn't, and Nintendo never did anything else besides warn them. Well, this is a lot more than a warning. This is shots fired. Nintendo going after ROM sites hardcore, millions and millions of dollars. Honestly, if I was someone looking to set up a ROM site, I would think long and hard about including anything related to Nintendo, because Nintendo's going to come after you, potentially. And is it worth providing what you might feel is a worthwhile service at the risk of your financial livelihood for the rest of your life? Probably not. So what I want to do is I want to toss this back out at you guys. You see, I'm not against what Nintendo's doing, but since they aren't providing a way to buy these games on Switch in particular, I'm not sure where retro gamers are going to be left. Once those cartridges degrade and there's not enough of them out there for everyone, or no affordable method to play all this stuff, I don't know what to do. If Nintendo at least had like a rental Netflix service, like what they're doing with Nintendo Switch Online, expanded to their entire classic library, I would be less upset about this, but it doesn't, and it might never get there. I mean, we're just on NES. Yeah, maybe they add SNES next year, but how many NES games can happen then? 30? 50? Like, there's thousands. And a lot of them owned by Nintendo, and some of them have never been re-released. So I'm at a loss. The gaming historian in me is saying this is bad. But the logical mind of me is saying, I understand why Nintendo's doing it. I just wish Nintendo would give us a way to play. So you guys let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this is a bad thing? Ultimately, this is going to make it significantly harder to get your hands on Nintendo ROMs in a convenient method, because I don't think anyone out there, at least in the United States, is really going to want to put up the risk of millions of dollars in legal fees. That, you know, Nintendo just set a precedent with 12.3. That precedent's going to be applied across the board with any other website they come after. Emu Paradise was very smart. One of the biggest sites ever. They just said, we're done with ROMs, which sucks because that was one of the biggest places to get ROMs, but also they don't want to have this happen. They can't afford $12.3 million. So you guys let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. And remember, we are giving away, ironically, a Nintendo Switch Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Bundle that does not allow you to play most of these retro games down in the comments below. Leave your feedback as well and let me know what you think of this whole situation, the lawsuit, the money Nintendo's getting, whether or not you think ROMs are good or bad, and the whole situation surrounding Nintendo not providing ways currently to conveniently buy basically 99% of their classic library of games. All right, folks, I'm Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, hit that like button. If you dislike it, I mean, I guess you can dislike the video. I can't stop you. And I'll just catch all of you guys in the next one.